Detroit Become Human is the latest interactive narrative experience to come from video game writer-director David Cage and his studio, Quantic Dream. Serving as a direct spin-off to the well-received 2012 tech demo Kara, Detroit reintroduces us to its predecessor's titular character, expanding upon the dystopian android-insensitive world she and others like her are doomed to coexist in. Those familiar with Quantic's body of work will discover that Detroit does little to stray from the formula established by their previous games. Players will be given control over 3 unique android protagonists as they navigate through an interwoven narrative that does its best to organically adapt to in-game decisions punctuated by quick-time events and light puzzles adventure game fans should feel right at home with. One of the biggest changes this time around, however, is the ability to review and jump to specific branches within the plot at the end of each major story arc. Detroit accompanies this throughout its entirety with persistent on-screen indicators informing you of locked dialogue and action choices, giving players a chance to course correct in real time to achieve a desired result. These tweaks to Quantic's established mechanics is to assist in what Cage has coined narrative exploration, wherein the goal is to ultimately ensure nothing is hidden from players who want to uncover all the story has to offer. Genre purists may take issue with this creative decision, but I personally appreciated the freedom to explore a story in its entirety without having to rely on multiple playthroughs of an approximately 10-hour experience. At times, Detroit feels like what you would get if you tasked a first-year creative writing student with building a world around a topic they had very little desire to research, just recklessly borrowing ideas without a care as to how well they fit, just to get the grade. Detroit's relatively grounded setting of 2038's Motor City turned Droid City helps to paint a picture of a world not too far removed from our own, one dealing with climate change, a record high unemployment rate, overpopulation, and the threat of World War III looming overhead. Oddly enough, this parallel world Quantic built, when juxtaposed against the backdrop of android ubiquity, tends to collapse under its own weight. For instance, it seems even most unemployed people who can't afford to stock their fridge with food are able to finance housekeepers that cost upwards of $8,000, not including maintenance, of course.
I can $7,999 with a 48 months interest-free credit.
I can't imagine Blue Blood and biocomponents are cheap. And let's just talk for a moment about how Detroit handles race relations. The androids are subjected to an oppressed life not unique to what minorities have experienced throughout humankind's sordid history, from being relegated to the back of the bus to having entry denied from various human-owned businesses.
Where the fuck you going, Tin Can?
Androids are even required to visually identify themselves with LEDs prominently displayed on their heads. This mirroring of past and present racial turmoil doesn't stop there. Marcus, one of the 3 playable characters, along with his group of android activists, recycle quotes from Dr. King and march through city streets with clenched fists held high. Ironically, in their attempt to make the android struggle resonate by wrapping it in racial allegories, Quantic left us with artificial husks fighting for a cause they can barely articulate using their own words. This emulating of an ideology feels as manufactured as the robots themselves. There's also a painfully predictable plot twist mid-game that not only retroactively ruins an earlier chapter, but also detracts from the overarching theme of android-human relations and the significance they'd play on paving the path towards harmonious coexistence. As evidenced by past works, Cage tends to be at his best when honing in on nuanced humanistic exchanges. As such, this is where Detroit's storytelling truly shines with the help of its solid cast of actors. The relationship and subsequent growth between Connor and Lieutenant Hank Anderson makes for some truly rewarding moments.
I really like that music. It's full of energy.
You listen to heavy metal?
As does Kara's adventure as a fugitive on the run and the shady individuals her and her traveling party may or may not encounter. Even Marcus, who is easily the most generic of the 3 playable characters, does have some genuinely emotional scenes sprinkled throughout. These fleeting moments, while few and far between, are certainly welcome in a story that spends much of its narrative energy on propelling its lackluster big picture. And that may be just enough to keep some players' attention. Another nice touch are the bonus points served up at the end of each chapter that can be exchanged in the extras menu, giving you access to loads of behind-the-scenes videos, trailers, concept art, and more.
So, what's your verdict, Marcus?
Overall, if it weren't for the poor execution of its narrative, Detroit Become Human is an otherwise fine inclusion into Quantic's portfolio. It is by far their best-looking game to date, with a wonderful soundtrack scored throughout and featuring all the inner workings of a quality adventure game to keep genre enthusiasts engaged. Indeed, if you're a fan of adventure games or even specifically Quantic Dream games, you may find it difficult not to forgive its narrative shortcomings and grade it on a curve. But with so many games of various genres telling amazing stories now, and so many other mediums covering Detroit's topics far better than it can, I'd say it's important to be objective. While not the worst Android Uprising story ever told, Detroit shows that Cage and crew still have a ways to go before their ideas catch up to their ambition.